It all started with a very simple idea. Tell the stories of how successful middle market CEOs made it to the corner office. I'm Brant Handley, founder and managing director of Resource Options International, or ROI. We're the USA's premier executive search firm focused exclusively on empowering middle market companies to attract, hire, and retain A players while transforming top executives' careers and lives. ROI's Into the Corner office is dedicated to discovering how middle market CEOs advance their career, and we're making these remarkable and sometimes quite unbelievable stories available to you for the very first time. Listen and learn about the challenges they've overcome, the interesting people they've met along the way, and the lessons learned that steered these executives' unique journey into a middle market corner office of their own. I know you enjoy these CEO stories as much as I've enjoyed recording them. So thank you for listening today. And if you like what you've heard, rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm looking forward to you joining me on the next great middle market CEO adventure into the corner office. Today, my guest is Chief Executive Officer Dallas Hale. Dallas is CEO and founded Shell Shack about 5 years ago and is heavily involved in all decisions with growth and development, as well as research and designing and evolving the Shell Shack brand. His strong entrepreneurial background helps him thrive for operational excellence for all his brands, and his successful reputation precedes him in the hospitality industry. He comes out of the military where he learned valuable lessons in management and has had a number of concepts very successfully in the Dallas and Houston area. Dallas Hale, welcome into the corner office.
Thank you, Brant. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful to have you here today. And with all of our podcasts, we always like to start, kind of early on and understand a little bit about the early years, where you grew up and what your early family life was like. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I was born in Houston, Texas, raised in Plano, and went through high school, normal, typical kid. I was a gymnast, fighter type, and went straight out of high school into the military, served my country. And
nice. Thank you for that.
Thank you. And when I got out, I was hanging out in bars quite a bit because I did join the military at a very young age.
Right.
And missed out on a lot of stuff that my friends did. And after about 3 months, I was like, why am I spending all my money in these bars? Why don't I just work in them?
Well, that's a great way to think about it. Let's rewind a little bit to get a little bit into the early years. Tell us about your parents. Any brothers and sisters at home? And, what did mom and dad do?
My mom was she owned one of the biggest daycares, or the biggest daycare in the state of Texas.
Cool.
And that's kind of where I grew up. Dad was not really too much of an influence in my life. I have two older sisters that were awesome. One was a gymnast, and the other one was just kind of there. And then I've got a little brother who was a star soccer player growing up. Played all over the world, international team and everything. Went to OU, broke the Texas state record for kicking a football, and then he followed me into the bar business. And he's one of the most sought after people for live music venues. In the business, cool. Yes.
Well, gosh, lots of sports involvement in the family. Who was the model for that? Was mom a gymnast as well?
No, mom was funny story is mom was 2-time national couples roller skating champion.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Yeah.
Like the old roller derby, is that what she did? Or
she was couples figure skating. Yes, roller figure skating champion.
How cool is that?
So she had us all into the sports, and she figured, keep us busy, keep us out of trouble. And
good strategy.
Absolutely. My son is also, taking it on to the next generation. He's the number 1 ranked gymnast in the country and is on Team USA and has been, doing his thing since about the age he could hold his head up.
Now, when did you start? You said you were a gymnast early on as well.
I was a gymnastics coach also for 20 years.
What got you into the sport? What was kind of the motivation early on? It sounds like you were.
My sister was a gymnast, so
This is older sister, right?
Yeah, the oldest sister. Yeah.
So your second mom, so to speak. In some ways.
No, I think my oldest sister really hated me a lot when I was a kid because I was the baby. And
I've got a couple of brothers with resentments that still are on.
Absolutely, and now we are extremely close. But she definitely did not like me because anything I did wrong, she got in trouble for.
Oh goodness. So who are some of those early influencers? Were there coaches, teachers? Who are the folks that kind of steered you along a little bit, provided some guidance for you?
I got to say my mom with her work ethic was probably the most influential. She ran the daycare. She was the brains behind everything. Took a daycare, bought half the building, and then ended up buying the other half of the building.
Nice.
Added on to it, put an indoor swimming pool in it.
Wow.
Bought all the acreage behind it, had a playground. There was literally, they were having to kick kids out of this daycare at the age of 13 because
they were having too much fun.
They were having too much fun. I mean, field trips every day during the summer, and they had a fleet of buses. They took, parents would drop them off in the morning. They would take them to their schools, pick them up from the school. I mean, the kids that were there all day, there were full kitchen, meals, everything. So it was just a crazy place that everybody wanted to be at.
That's great.
And
she sounds like she was quite the business person then too, with all the expansion.
She still is to this day. To this day, she's in her 70s and she runs North Texas Soccer. So
no kidding. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Were you a good student in school?
I could have been.
Let me answer that question. You were good at the subjects you enjoyed, right?
Kinda.
I only say that because that's a pretty common CEO response, right?
I was good at the subjects that I enjoyed, and then I was also good at the subjects that I was bored at. And I only say that in sixth period, I had history, and I would go into the back of the class and immediately fall asleep. I remember one of the people, somebody said, "Why does he always get to come in here and go to sleep?" I had a 94 grade average.
It was just easy for you.
It was just easy for me for that one class. Now, of course, I had other classes that weren't as easy, and I had to work hard at. But I probably could have been a better student if I wanted to be. I just, my mind was focused.
A little bored. Huh?
Yeah, I was bored. I was focused on working from a very young age, and I worked full time from about the age of 14 when I lied about my age. I forged my birth certificate so I could get a job and work full time and then go to school and then do sports and all that. So
what were those things outside of class? You'd mentioned obviously you got started in gymnastics. What other sports did you play? Like through middle school, high school?
Well, through middle school, high school it was all gymnastics.
It was all gymnastics.
Yeah. Once I got older, I got into MMA.
Okay. Got it. Great. And what was your gymnastics routine? Did you have a special, were you doing floor? Were you doing bars?
I was all around.
All around. Mm-hmm. Nice. Anything else? Any sports, music, theater? I mean, other sports or music or theater or anything like that? And
there's other sports that I enjoyed a lot.
Right.
Volleyball, absolutely one of them. Like I said, fighting, absolutely one of them.
Yeah.
But besides that, your traditional football and stuff like that kind of bored me.
Right.
A little bit more precision. That's why I like gymnastics. Volleyball, again, you just can't throw a football, run down the field. You actually got to bump, set, spike, and get after it. So and have a lot of fun with it.
So you kind of like the science part of it as well. I mean, it was as much about skill as it was art. Is that kind of how you thought about it? I mean, certainly gymnastics is that way, isn't it?
Well, yeah,
Very
it's
precise.
about skill, precise. You got to be your mind's got to be right. It's definitely and it's known as the hardest, most dangerous sport in the world. So you definitely have to know what you're doing.
Yeah. You mentioned always working. What were some of the first entrepreneurial things you did as a kid?
First job I ever had is I sold subscriptions for the Dallas Morning News.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
But then from there and that was at a young age where I didn't have to, we were allowed at 11 and 12 to do that.
Right. Did you deliver the paper as well? Or
no, I actually went door to door and sold the subscription, got people to sign up for it. But my very first job where I actually forged my birth certificate was working at Dairy Queen.
Okay. Oh, you had to be 16 or so, or what was the age?
Correct. Yeah.
That's great. Behind the counter. Were you a big kid? Were you able to convince them that 14 was the new 16?
Not really, but I think at that time, 14 and 16 didn't look a whole lot different.
Yeah, and you had the work ethic, I'm sure that they loved. Yeah, cool. And that was in high school, junior high? I guess that would have been junior high, right? Before high school, or just at the edge?
Just at the edge.
Yeah. And what other types of jobs did you do during high school?
I worked at also, I did McDonald's, I did a couple fast food, and then I worked at grocery stores. And but then, really, kind of bounced around, did a couple different things, roller skating rink. But then I started coaching gymnastics at 17.
Oh, great.
And stayed
younger
with that
kids then?
Yeah, younger kids. Yeah. And then, coaching cheerleaders, and, that was always fun because they were always girl cheerleaders. So, and then from there, worked my way up to where I was a team coach, and I was coaching women's gymnastics for the longest time up to the elite level. And then when my son was born, I started coaching men's gymnastics till I got so busy that I could no longer coach anymore.
Now, you'd mentioned you served in the military. Thank you again for that service. Now, was that straight after high school?
Straight out of high school.
Coaching? Okay, yeah. Got it. And which branch of the service were you in, and where'd you go?
I was in the Coast Guard.
Okay.
And I got
stationed then, or
I was in Desert Storm, and I was stationed also in in California, stationed in New Jersey, and did a lot of TAD in Miami.
Got it. How many years?
5 years.
5 years.
5 years active.
Great. And then did you come back and do the GI program and do college or go straight to work?
No, I actually did some college while I was in the military. Okay. And I went to college for phys ed because I wanted to be a gymnastics coach at a college or a high school. Yeah. Well, while I was going to college, I realized you don't need a degree to work in the clubs, and all the best gymnasts are not in college or high schools. They're at private clubs like my son is. So the Nastia Lukens and the Carly Pattersons and all these gymnasts, they don't do high school and college gymnastics. They do club gymnastics where you do not need a degree.
Right.
So after 2 years, I went ahead and dropped out of college and focused on that.
Got it. And so were you studying just purely phys ed classes at the time?
Well, I was going for a phys ed degree.
Got it. Okay. Did you take some general education as well, or was that not part of it? Okay. Got it. Yeah. So you got kind of the requirements. So did that for a couple of years, and then did you go right into coaching then after you decided that you weren't going to do any more in school, or you were doing coaching probably already during that time? Correct?
Yeah, I was coaching already during that time, and I got my certification through. So, and to this day, I'm still certified nationally through USA Gymnastics, and still an active member where my son's gym makes me stay certified in case they ever need me to come out on the floor for any reason. Yeah.
Got it. So what was that full-time job then? I mean, it sounds like you kind of were working all the time, but, once you were out of the military, you've kind of decided that you didn't need to, finish the degree to do coaching. Were you then coaching at one of those private clubs? Was that the first full-time job? Okay.
So I was coaching, and that again is also why I went into bartending. It's because the bartending aspect of it was coaches do not make great money, especially in the beginning. Right. And it is not a job that you're going to get super rich at unless you own your own and you've produced some Olympians and stuff like that.
Sure.
So with that being said, you had to find a way to subsidize your income, and when you
your night job,
when you love gymnastics, you find a way to do it, and that's the night job.
Yeah, got it. So that's what kind of got you into bartending, and then working in clubs. So were you doing that, kind of full time for both, 40 hours a week, 80 hours in total, or
pretty much?
Yeah. Because that's a hard life. I mean, obviously, and family at that time too. Then you said your son was born while you were coaching.
Oh, my son was born. This was way after I got into managing bar restaurant. My son was born. I was 30, 31, something like that.
Got it. So how did you transition into kind of the full-time hospitality? When did you kind of decide, that the day job probably wasn't going to be quite as lucrative, and decided to go full-time into the night job, which became both your day job and your night job?
I went into that, and see, I worked nights all the time.
Sure.
And so I was able to actually keep coaching for a very long time.
Wow, that's great.
And what I did at a young age was I transitioned from bartending to management at a very young age, took the horrible pay, and learned.
Walked away from those tips, right?
Right. And which is something that, if I can't say enough, that people don't do. They get used to that cash tips.
That's true. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're 50-year-old bartenders that want to become managers, and they're used to making $2,500, $3,000 a week.
Yeah.
And all they're qualified for is $800 a week manager because they don't know how to manage.
Yeah. Yeah. They kind of skipped off the tangent.
Right. Where I went at a very early in my career and started managing, worked my way up to general manager, opened up my first club, which I bought the club I learned how to manage at. Thought I knew everything you could possibly know about the industry. Realized I did not know a thing about being an owner.
What do you remember the first time you started managing people? When was that, Dallas?
Oh man, I first started managing people when I was in the military.
All right. Sure.
So because I was a petty officer, I was an E5, so I had people underneath me.
Right.
But first time, I guess I was probably 16 years old. Actually, I was working hospitality at a Holiday Inn restaurant.
Oh.
Yeah, in Corsicana, Texas.
Yeah. Yeah. And you had a staff or folks that you were managing?
I was the restaurant supervisor there, and cool. Which I don't know how I got put in that position, but I did.
Were you actually 14 or were you technically 16 at that time?
No, I was really 16 at that time.
Do you remember?
Almost 17.
Almost 17. All right. Do you remember any kind of leadership lessons from that period of time? I mean, it's tough. You're probably managing people that were older than you, right? And
everybody was. I was the youngest person there.
Sure. So what were some of the early lessons that you took on in those jobs?
At that age, I didn't take on a whole lot of lessons because I was just having so much fun,
Right.
And everybody had been there for a while, so they knew their job very well. So there wasn't, a whole lot that I really had to do at that time, except, make sure everybody was there and do their checkouts. And, if there was a problem with the table, go over and talk to them.
And did you, have bosses at the time that you might have remembered things about how they managed you? I know, for me, I kind of remember the lessons of behavior that I saw that I would never use, right? And do you have any of those that you remembered? You don't need to mention any names.
No, in fact, I've got to say this job in Corsicana was really, I had great bosses, and I had one pastry chef that didn't like me, probably because I was, half his age, and
Right.
I don't even know why he didn't like me, because it wasn't like I was in there trying to tell him what to do. I said hi every day and everything,
Right.
I wasn't trying to be bossy or anything. And the guy been doing it for 30 something years or 20 something years. It wasn't something that I was trying to tell him to do, and he just didn't like me for whatever reason.
Had a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, something.
Had a bad boss in the past. It's unfortunate. You see that a lot, though. People that, maybe had a bad experience when they were younger that had a bad boss, and then every boss is bad to them.
Right.
I've seen that often, particularly in the food service industry, where, we do a lot of recruiting. What are, some of the things that you would say, particularly after well, let's go back a little bit. Now, so evolution from, you're obviously coaching, you were working at bars at night, and then you became the owner. What was that first opportunity? Where was that in your career?
That was young in my career. That was 2 years after I got out of the military. So I would have been 25 years old.
Right.
And I bought this club where I was offered, it was minimal, but I'd been running it and everything, thought I knew everything about the bar industry, did not know anything about being an owner, taxes, insurance, liquor licensing, liquor liabilities, getting sued, and I lost everything.
Oh, wow.
But it was probably the best thing that could have happened to me.
Sure. How long did that last? You were 25 to what, 27 or?
25 to about 26.
It wasn't that long a time.
No,
right?
it was about a year.
Oh, goodness. And then what happened? Did you go work for someone else for a while, or did you go back into it? Yeah.
I got back. A friend of mine told me that, they were looking for managers, and I was like, and this was in a restaurant. And I was like, I don't know how to manage a restaurant. And he goes, yeah, but you owned a nightclub. He's like, you'll be fine. And so I went in there and started learning how to manage a restaurant, and then went to different places until I got a mentor, and I stayed at location, and I was always hungry, wanting to learn more. And I wasn't your typical general manager. I was one that was given insurance audits and different things that normal GMs don't do. And I, with my mentor, and he actually taught me more and more where GMs didn't know how to do this stuff. So that's when I really started learning about liquor liability and what happens when you get sued, and different ways to handle the incident reports, and making sure that we were always covered, and just every aspect of the business. Well, I say every aspect. I still don't know every aspect of the business. The day that any owner, CEO, anybody says that they know everything, they lose. I still have people I call to this day, probably once a week, and ask them questions. Scott Gordon from Front Burner is a perfect example. I call him when I have a question, or I want to run something by him. And that guy is so awesome. He charges me every time, and I think it's a fair price. He goes, you want to pick my brain? You got to buy me lunch.
There you go. At his choice, right?
No. He doesn't even care. He'll go to one of my restaurants every time, which I get out cheap that way.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
great.
But that is his fee, with the understanding that I will do the same one day to somebody else.
That's nice. Well, you'd mentioned mentoring, and a few minutes ago you'd mentioned a mentor. Is that who you're referring to? Was there someone else that?
I've had a couple. But Scott Gordon, Michael Mabry from Mooyah. I've had several.
Now, are these guys that you worked with? Were they, people in the industry? Because mentoring is so key, right, in terms of developing yourself.
I never worked with Michael Mabry or Scott Gordon. John Berkman was definitely one that taught me a lot. But it's just hard work. And
did you reach out to these guys because you respected them and just say, hey, can I pick your brain a bit? Or how did you get the mentoring started, I guess, is what I'm looking for.
Let's see, Michael Mabry, I met through Michael Mabry and Scott Gordon, I met them both through mutual friends. Okay. And they were just super nice guys. They didn't have to, give me the time of day, and they did. Right. And, and to this day, I'm still friends with them, and I still reach out to them all the time. Nice. And, I support any new concepts they do, and they do the same for me.
If you don't ask, the answer's no. Right.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
That's just a great way to be out there. So you're obviously CEO and founder of Shell Shack. Give us a little bit of an advanced time frame from, the 25 to 26 period owning the nightclub, going back and managing. When did you decide to go back out and own again? Was it with Shell Shack, or was there something before?
No. We've had several different concepts. Okay. We've had Latina concepts. We've had sports bars, different concepts. And Shell Shack came about when I went to a place of similar concept that I was like, wow, this is really good, but they are doing everything wrong here. And this is the downfall of going to a restaurant or a bar with me. I pick it apart every time. And I hate that because I just see it and I'm like, oh my God. And it just really bothers me. And so we took this concept and basically improved everything we possibly could with it and opened up our own. And really, it's really just taken off.
Yeah, cool. And tell us a little bit about the concept, what it is. And, for those of us that are listening, or a lot of those of our audience that are listening that may not be in your region.
Well, it is a Texas Bowl, and we hope we will be in the region one day because we are expanding throughout the United States right now at a very expedited rate right now. But the Shell Shack concept is a Texas boil. And I say Texas boil because sometimes people, they try to compare us to a Cajun restaurant. We are not a Cajun restaurant. And what we do is we take our crab or crawfish, shrimp. We have a limited menu for a reason, because we wanted to really focus on a limited menu instead of a 8-page menu.
Getting that food right.
Right. and we take it and we put it in a wet marinade. And it comes out, and you put it on butcher block paper and go to town, roll your sleeves up, and just really you'll get elbows deep. Don't ever wear a white shirt to my restaurant. I promise.
Will you give me a bib if I show up?
We absolutely should. We give you bibs. They are customized Shell Shack bibs, and you could get gloves if you want, and we have a hand wash station that is. We call it our world famous hand wash station, because if you read some of the reviews, they will go on and on about this hand wash station. It's the funniest thing.
I love it. And how many stores today?
I think we're opening up our 7th corporate, and we have 2 franchise, and the 3rd and 4th franchise are about to start being built. Oklahoma's been locked in. I think Atlanta's been locked in. So nice. Houston, they will put a total of 10 stores there. We sold Houston. Austin is locked in. So yeah, we're going strong.
Good deal. And is your expansion
Florida?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Florida, I've got 3 locations that we just bought there. So yeah, Florida's locked in also.
Nice. So are you doing kind of a dual track corporate and franchise growth approach, or will you go all franchise, or kind of see how things go?
Yeah, we're doing a corporate and franchise along with our Sushi Concept, which I don't even know if you knew about that we have a Sushi Concept.
You mentioned that when we spoke the other day. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. But that's a separate store, right?
That's a separate store, but that's also one that we are growing at a huge rate.
Nice. And how many units do you have of those? How many
we are at our first one. With that, which it's in the Dallas Cowboys training facility, the big, the star that's been all over the news, all over the world, the most plush, training facility for the Dallas Cowboys and or for any NFL team, and that's where we put our first sushi restaurant.
Got it. Cool. Well, that's great. And the plan is to do both corporate and franchise on that as well.
Actually, I think I'm going to keep that one more corporate.
More corporate. Yeah. Good. Great. And how many employees today?
Well over 500.
Yeah. Great. And then you've got like a regional structure, right? Where you've got district managers, and then you've got a corporate office as well there.
Yeah. We got corporate office, which is, where we outgrew it. Let's see. We came to this exact corporate office a year and a half ago.
Right.
Outgrew it. Had to lease the corporate the office right next to us and cut a hallway through it. Now we've just about outgrown this, and we're about to buy our own building, and with test kitchen and the whole works here very quickly.
Congratulations. And how many of those folks directly report to you? Do you have kind of like a standard organizational structure, marketing, sales, franchising, et cetera, or is it a much more flat type of an organization?
Well, the one thing I always said I'd never wanted to do was go corporate. And then after opening several locations, realized I didn't have a choice.
Right.
So that's been a struggle, getting people to go through their chain of command when they've always been used to just going to me.
Sure,
but we have now reached it where, my right hand, which is my DM, Bill, he is, everybody goes through him, and he comes directly to me, or they go to my assistant, which is I would absolutely go nuts without, and that's Shelby. She keeps me on track.
I think she was getting set up today too. I think I heard her in the background.
Shelby and then there's Ariana.
And Ariana as well. Of course,
yeah, she handles all the PR, which I would go absolutely nuts without her. I don't even know how I survived without either one of those two.
Well, picking good people
in my early years,
thing.
Yeah. So. Yeah. But we still keep a couple things mom and pop, and that's the food. You're constantly looking for the best crab, the best shrimp, because it does change throughout the year, or the quantities change, and you have to, just because you have this one shrimp, that shrimp's not always going to be available. The quotas get changed, and you've got to change over to a different shrimp. So that's the one thing we stay mom and pop on is. When somebody sends us in something that they want us to try, I get all my senior management. I said, okay, whoever wants to try this, be at the Plano location at 3:30 today, and we'll just cook it all up and get everybody's vote on it. And
That's great. So you buy from all over the country, I presume, right?
Absolutely. We buy from, we get our crab out of the Bering Sea,
right?
And we get our shrimp from all over.
Yeah.
Our oysters are from the Gulf. So crawfish is from Louisiana. catfish from Mississippi. So
you're making me hungry, Dallas. I'm gonna have to get down to a Shell Shack soon.
It's good food. It's good food. Yeah,
I love it. Let's talk a little bit about your leadership style. From the days of 16, 17, 14, whatever you were, with managing people that were probably twice, if not three times your age, to today. What do you say are some of the things that's changed? In terms of your approach with people?
Oh, my Lord. So I can tell you honestly, and I want to say any manager, owner who's ever not said this, I'm going to call him a liar. It goes to your head a little bit. It does. You own a place, you manage a place, you're a general manager. You've got these people answering to you.
You're king of your own kingdom. Huh?
Exactly. And then especially when you're doing really good. And when I was general manager, I got nominated for general manager of the year, and that was 5 people in the country.
Nice.
And I didn't win, but to be nominated was a huge ordeal for me. So you kind of start believing, what everybody says, everything's so good, and you kind of pound on your own chest. And that is the worst thing that could possibly happen.
Right.
So I feel that I was lucky enough to learn from that. You start running great numbers, and you're like, you start believing in yourself, and you're like, nothing can stop us. Well, absolutely something can stop you. 2008, the recession slowed everybody down. Where we were there was only 2 concepts like us in DFW. Now there's 22 copycats. Which we will take credit for being the best, but every time a copycat opens, they open and close. They might take 1 or 2% of your customer base for a little bit. You've constantly got to be doing the best job you can. And the one thing I can say more than anything is listen to your staff. They just because you're the CEO or the boss or the owner doesn't mean you know everything. And I said earlier that when you think you know everything, that's when you lose.
Game over.
I can tell you my first franchisee. I love telling this story because it's such a great story. My first franchisee, the operator for Houston, was going through the training program, and he's got almost as much experience as I do, but I'll give him as credit as I might have more years, but he probably has just as much experience. He came to me after he went through 90 days of training, and he sat across from my desk, and he said, "Hey, Dallas, I know it's your company, but a couple things I noticed." And I go, "What's that?" And he goes, "Well," he says, "your tomatoes, you put 2 tomatoes on your burgers and your buffalo chicken sandwich." And I go, "Okay, yeah." And he goes, "So when you start eating from one side, you get 1 tomato, but when you get to the middle, you're like getting double tomato." I said, "Yeah, okay." And he goes, "Well, that kind of changes the flavor of your burger or your chicken sandwich, or I was like, "Okay." And he goes, for the exact same price, you can get a little bit bigger tomato that will cover your whole sandwich, and you only have to put 1 tomato on. It's the same cost. You're not losing anything." And he's like, "You're actually gaining because you're not putting 2 slices of tomato on." And I sat there and I looked at him. And I said, "Larry, give me 1 second." Picked up the phone, called my DM. I said, "Tell everybody to go through all their tomatoes and do not order again. Go to the next tomato up and let's go to 1 slice." And that is the mom and pop way of I don't go through a big test of, market research.
It just makes sense.
It just makes sense. And I pick up a phone and call and say, "Let's do it."
I love the fact that he led with taste and not cost, because I thought you were going to say cost, but he didn't, right? He talked about the flavor part of it. And that shows obviously where his heart is, which is, it's the customer at the end of the day. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that, Dallas.
I love that story, and I have many more. I've had managers that have come to me with ideas on, crab bags and this and that, and it's I will listen to everybody's idea, and a lot of them won't make it, and I have I have no problem explaining why, whether it's we've already tried it or did you think of this or did you think of that,
but you're open to it. Yeah,
I am always open to it because I can promise you there are people that are much smarter than me out there, and I did not get where I am by thinking that I know it all.
You keep your humility. I like that.
There might have been a time I thought I knew it all, and I realized I didn't.
Right. You did that early on.
Yeah.
I love it. We talked a lot about the importance of people, whether they're franchisees, customers, or employees. What do you look for when you're making bets on the people you invest in? New employees, franchisees, et cetera.
I'm looking for people who are not yes men. I'm looking for people who are here for the long term. I've got one girl that has been with me through all my concepts and has been with me for 15 years.
Nice.
My DM has been with me from the very beginning for Shell Shack and was actually with me at one of my other concepts and left me for an opportunity to go to Brinker. And he actually learned a lot from Brinker. And when I opened up Shell Shack, I called him up and I said, "Hey, Bill, you ready to come home?" And he goes, "Yeah, boss, I am." And 2 weeks later, he was back with me, and we're him and I we talk probably 10 times a day.
That's great.
And he's not afraid to tell me he doesn't agree with something, and I will listen to him every time. Yeah. And and that's what I need for this company. Yeah. He goes, "Well, Dallas, I don't necessarily agree with you." "Well, Bill, tell me why you don't agree with me." "Well, I don't agree with you because of this." "Well, Bill, did you think of this?" "Well, actually, no, I didn't." And he'll do the same back with me. "Well, Dallas, did you think of this?" Actually, I didn't think of that." and that's what you need. You got to have people that aren't afraid to come to you with their ideas, and you got to be able to listen, because you can't do it all. Can't do it all.
Well, Dallas, Hale, you've been very generous with your time. We do have one last question we ask all our CEOs. And, what kind of career and life advice would you give to someone who, has their eyes on their own corner office, or specifically wants to be an entrepreneur like you and, found their own concept or their own company? What's the most important?
Give up sleep.
Yeah, I can imagine.
If you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to be a CEO, if you want to really not have somebody that you answer to, then you need to go and get after it and forget about everything else. You got to forget about going out and partying, and you've got to forget about, a lot of things, but you also got to realize a lot of things that you're going to give up. And a lot of people aren't prepared to do that. The 60, 70, 80 hours a week, I haven't been on vacation in over 15 years that my cell phone is not attached to my hip at all times. So, you got to be prepared. And there will come a day that my cell phone won't be attached to my hip, but it's not for another 5 years. I can guarantee that. And
you're enjoying life. It's the journey, right?
It's the journey, but trust me, I would love to be able to go away for a week and not have my phone with me. But unfortunately, this is not the time. And one day that time will come, and I will be happy with it. But if you're ready to make that commitment and get after it, you have to be committed. Get that work ethic. 80 hours a week. That is a minimum. That's a minimum to work.
Well, Dallas, best of luck on the expansion nationally and eventually globally with Shell Shack. And what was the name of the Sushi Concept? Can you share that with us?
Sushi Marquee.
Sushi Marquee. Okay.
It is a great sushi concept. It is nothing like you've ever seen before.
Fantastic.
And we are expanding that one also. That one is a lot of fun. I want to take full credit for that idea, but I can't. My business partner, Brad Hawkins, and he'll probably kill me for this, but he's very well known as he was a Mighty Morphin Power Ranger.
Oh, got it.
Yes, and it was his idea. He came to me. Him and I have been the best friends for 25 years. Came to me one day and said, "I got an idea," and Sushi Marquee was born.
That's fantastic. Well, Dallas, best of luck moving forward, and thank you so much for sharing your CEO journey today.
You bet.
Thank you for listening to Into the Corner Office with Brant Hanley. We hope you enjoyed hearing our guest CEO story as much as we did. If you want to hear more CEOs reveal their journey into the corner office, please subscribe via iTunes and tell your friends and colleagues. For more information about Brant, Resource Options International, and the mighty middle market, visit www.goforroi.com. We look forward to having you join us for our next episode.